sharing with real estate agents how to grill loan officers. This
setting expectations, there's maybe...
And we all know rate is important, right? Because that is a part of the calculation, but is that the only thing? So, hey everybody, Sean here. Welcome to the Renown Mortgage Podcast. I am Sean Walker, your host. And as always, I'm joined by our amazing owner, Justice Roberts. Justice, how are you doing?
I'm doing incredible and excited to be chatting with you here today.
Come on. As always, we kind of started off, for some reason, us being in Seattle, we touch on the weather. 78 degrees today we're going to hit in the great Northwest. So if you're thinking about going to that open house this weekend, go to the early ones because it's going to get really warm. It's going to be nice around here. So speaking of people coming off the sidelines or looking at open houses, that's what we want to talk about this week. I thought an interesting phenomenon that's happening right now is we were talking about for months and months and months, clients that were sitting on the sidelines, just not wanting to make that decision, waiting for rates to go up and down. It was just getting too challenging. So they just decided, I'm just going to wait. We're just going to wait. We're going to live our lives. But the challenge with that is life happens. Families grow. Home office, jobs, remote jobs aren't going anywhere. So just the circumstances that cause people to grow. We were seeing the great rate freeze, people who had interest rates below 5%, they were just never going to move. Well, now we're actually starting to see a loosening in that as well because situations happen. Jobs change, life change, circumstances change. So we are now seeing that sideline. The benches are starting to clear on that sideline, Justice. So what are we starting to see in that? What are we attributing that to? I talked a little bit about that, but what's exciting about we're actually starting to see this big move towards, hey, I think home ownership, we need to make that decision.
Yeah, I think there's a few things that we're seeing. Definitely clients that I've talked with that, were pre-approved, certainly first-time home buyers that I feel like are, for whatever reason, maybe it's the fact that it's not as stark of a contrast or they kind of just made their peace with where interest rates and payments are at. That's an element. But then I think what you alluded to is like homeowners that are like, hey, I'm stuck in my, 3% interest rate and I'm not going to ever leave. And then they're like,
right.
I won't ever leave until I leave.
Right. Surprise. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
And, I think that it's, it makes sense until it starts compromising your life and you realize that you're like, I can't put my life on hold or us progressing to some of these next steps. Even my own family, like we just added another to our family. It's like, hey, we have a really attractive low interest rate, but the house isn't meeting our needs. So, what does that look like down the road? Like we're going to have to not put our life on pause and hold for very long. And it's like, hey, you're going to have to list your house and you're going to just take what the market has to give you. And I think we're seeing a lot of clients and buyers in the market, sellers that are willing to list their properties now. And we're seeing more inventory. All of that, I think, is evidence that the consumer is getting more comfortable moving forward and, not waiting and putting as much weight on what's going on in the world, what's going on with the Fed. Not that those things are not still in transit. They're still working. Yeah. They're still working their way through. But I think that it's, families that are making that decision despite that, which I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. And, it's kind of the message that I've been preaching for a long time is, hey, like, you do not put your life on hold for what's going on at in the federal government or what's going on with it. Obviously, we need to be mindful from a budget perspective, how that impacts things. But I think consumers are just going out there and they're making those decisions. We're definitely seeing it show up in applications and conversations that we're having. So it's spring market is in full swing.
Spring market is in full swing. I think one of the things that, and we shout it from the rooftops every single week. If you've watched the Rise podcast and the Renown podcast or anything, and you listen to what we do, we have talked about getting educated, having an advocate, having a coach, someone to come alongside you to help you make this process is informed as possible so that whether a step forward is actually something you should take or if you're actually doing the right thing, if maybe the wait and see is still very much the right step for you. But I think what some of the people have been paralyzed by was that lack of information. It was that piece that just said, I don't know, and I actually don't even know where to go to find out whether I should go. And so we're just going to kind of just wait. And then maybe when interest rates drop below 6%, we'll be in the 5s. That must be my green light to go. But having a low interest rate isn't your only green light when it comes to qualifying or what is the best move forward. I think you would agree, like, we have to educate people. There's definitely more than just a low interest rate when it comes into should I actually get off the sideline or not, right? I mean, am I right about that?
Yeah, I think there's multiple ways that you can take that with depending on the client situation, but absolutely, like interest rate is one element of how things come together. And I think from many consumers' perspective, they're looking at a mortgage payment and they're comparing that to their current mortgage payment. And I think that
Right.
that's one element. The conversation I would create for a lot of people is actually let's take a look at your total monthly expenses
Yeah.
because that's really your monthly outgoing. We've had some incredible structuring loan structure situations where you sell the house, you take the equity that you've got, you pay off all the rest of your
Right.
consumer debt, your auto loans, your credit cards,
Right.
whatever. We get you into a new house that's actually an upgrade, and your payment either stays the same, it goes down, or maybe it's
Right.
like it's $500 more than what you're paying right now. And you're like, you're telling me that I could go buy the house that I need to buy
Right.
that helps my family, and I'm literally
Right.
$500 more? Because again, you talk about information. When that light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, this is actually doable.
Yeah.
If somebody would have
Yeah.
told me I could do what it is that I
Right.
want to do and it's going to cost me $500,
Right.
I'd have done it if they told me it cost $1,000. I just didn't
Right.
even know what the number was. And the part of engaging the process, having those conversations. I had a client with a conversation I had yesterday. They found out they have $200,000 worth of equity in their
Right.
house, and they bought it just a few years ago. I think it was maybe 4 or 5 years ago when they closed, and they're like, oh my gosh, I've got way more options than I thought that I
Right.
had. We can pivot this,
100%.
we could structure that. And I think that, the possibilities can be endless depending
Right.
on your situation, what you have to work with. And so
Yeah.
I think definitely an informed consumer is one that is a more confident consumer at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
having conversations with our clients and really wanting them to be educated, informed, and partnered with, I think is
Right.
a huge part of how consumers and other loan officers like us are helping to make a difference for clients, making these decisions show up in the statistics we're seeing.
Yeah, I think the components that make up the paralysis on the sideline, credit score, down payment, do I have the equity? Is this even possible? Those things are all solvable by a conversation. So I would absolutely encourage you, if you are sitting on the sidelines still, if you haven't joined the spring fling yet and jumped out there and said, all right, we're just throwing caution to the wind, we're going to make it, we're going to make an informed decision. Reach out. That is why we're here at Renown. Have a conversation. We would love to have it. It's a blast to find out, oh my gosh, things are better. You have $200,000 equity in your house. You didn't even know it. That empowers you to make great decisions. So that is why we're here. Don't hesitate to reach out. And again, like, comment, subscribe, all the good things. If you think anyone would find any value from what we said today, because they're sitting on the sidelines, and you've just found a tool that is going to help them maybe get off the sidelines and step into their dreams of homeownership, that is why we are here. So for now, I am Sean with our owner, Justice. Have an absolutely amazing weekend. We will talk to you soon. All right.